Going to introduce to you our panel tonight. I've said a couple of times, this is really a once-in-a-lifetime experience to have them here tonight. Sitting before you are 4 Indiana High School basketball all-stars. And I'll introduce them in order of the year that they were the all-star. First was Gene Yates, Anderson High School graduate, class of 1940. He played in the first All-Star game where Indiana was pitted against Kentucky. Is that correct, Gene?
That's correct.
Okay. Gene went on to on a track scholarship to Ohio State University. Gene won 11 letters, Anderson High School athletic, and I don't think there are too many people that did that. That's 1940. We were going to have Muff Davis from Frankton, from Orestes and Elwood here tonight, but Muff's got some issues with his wife that he needed to stay home, so we can't have Muff. Next in order is the 1946 state championship team. Have 2 members from that. We're also Indiana High School All-Stars, Bob Ritter and Gene Wilson. Gene is, Johnny Wilson. Johnny, as you know, was Mr. Basketball from Anderson High School, and he went on to play at Anderson.
Good help's hard to get.
Never change.
I had that written down here. Anderson University. Bob went to Indiana University. And the last one on the panel tonight is Johnny's brother, Gene. See, I got it right that time. Gene was a 1950 graduate of Anderson High School. He was also an Indiana High School basketball all-star. And he went to Kansas State University on a basketball scholarship. And so this idea was born across the hall last summer when we were talking about stories about Indiana High School basketball, and it was so entertaining. I said, we got to make a program out of this. So Gene graciously stepped in and said he would do that. He's made the arrangements for the gentleman to be here tonight, and he's got some questions and so forth to kind of get it going. So without any further ado, Gene Yates.
Well, I have to tell you about Muff. Muff Davis played, of course, he played in the 41 All-Star game. And he didn't plan for college, didn't plan to enter college until after the All-Star game, which he did. Well, this was a mistake because he had a lot of people had already applied for schools, and so he had to scramble around, and he finally got into the University of Kentucky. And at that time, a lot of schools required that incoming freshmen all had to take 1 year of phys ed. So he said, well, I'm a basketball player. I sign up for basketball. Well, that class is full. So they went down through a litany of classes that he could take, and that one was full, and a lot of reasons. One of them was left. You'll never guess what. Muff Davis. He's well over 6 feet, bulky. He probably has no ability whatsoever, so he had to take tap dancing. And when he and I were talking about it, I asked him, I said, Muff, do you still tap dance? He said, I didn't then, and I don't now. Well, anyway, that's how he and I got off the ground, and we started talking about John and Bob and Gene, and that's how this whole thing came about. And what do you think the highest spread in scores in Indiana has ever been? Anybody have any? Well, anyway, in 1908, there was, Rochester played Bremen, Indiana, and the score was 129-9. Now, a part of that may have been, if you calculate the fact that in those days, after every basket, we walked back to the center, and then we had the center jump again. So if you had an 8-foot center and a 4-foot center against you, you know who's going to get the ball. And consequently, if you calculate it out, it would take about 3 hours and 50 minutes just to walk back and forth to the center to jump. And the last year for the center jump was 1934-35, and that was when Anderson won the 35 tournament. Now, in 1946, John Wilson was the first to score 30 points in a championship game. And the history shows that the author says that Anderson was probably the first fast break team to nail down a state championship to start a new basketball trend. And that was true. Now, who taught you to shoot the ball?
Taught me to shoot the ball? I don't know, probably my brothers, Glenn and Raymond.
Okay.
You know.
Did they teach you to shoot two-hand shots?
Always, everybody shot two hands at that time.
Okay. You had the two-hand shot. Did you have the two-hand shot?
Nope.
Okay.
Jump shot.
You used the traditional jump shot that they're using today. What did you use, Ritter? Or did you just throw the ball?
Whatever was available.
That wasn't the question. Well, in my day, it was a two-handed shot, and I was the poorest shot in the world. I don't think I ever scored over 10 points in any one game. My only play was that I could use my elbows and other parts of my body to interfere with the guy with the ball. And I think that's probably how I got to play on the All-Star team. But how many points did you say? You had 30 in that final game. What was your highest? You ever had a high school?
In high school,
Yeah,
30.
30 was the most. What about you, Gino?
Oh, somewhere in the neighborhood about 20 or 21.
21. How about you, Bob?
Oh, I don't know, 12, 13, maybe 14.
Yeah. So we weren't the red hot scorers, but of course Anderson was had some great teams. I went back into the history of in our library we have a lot of yearbooks, and in the 1928 yearbook it says that Anderson scored 75 to Montmorency 19. In 1918 they scored 74 to New Palestine 7. In 1917 they scored 62 and beat Newcastle 11 points. And in 1914 they scored 60 points and beat Largo by 16. Now what do you remember the highest score in when you played?
67.
67.
Yeah, the thing is that people don't realize that the scoring then was that the clock did not stop. Only time the clock stopped was on a shooting foul and a timeout.
Yeah.
So that's why the scores were so low during our time. And in my coaching, I ran a practice one day using the same way, and then ran one with the way the clock stops now. And we had one full quarter extra to play today than they had during my day. So if you score 67 points then, you add another quarter of maybe 20, 25 points, so you got your 80-some points.
Any other comments? You have anything? Well, don't just sit there.
But you mentioned tell you something, you mentioned the team of 46, the fast break. Actually, the fast break started in 44, and that was by far the best team I played on, with Joe Anderson, Bill Howard, Erskine, and Rodney Skiles. And we went to the state and lost in the afternoon state because I got hurt the week before. And our fast break was different than any other fast break, is that I would rebound and then lead the fast break. Because the coach felt that I could get down the floor faster than kicking it out to somebody else, and then so I'd lead the break down the floor. But that in 44, I wasn't able to get down the floor that way. But in 46, was able to get down the floor, and Bob and Cochran were on each side, and I think Bob scored I think 16, and I think John Cochran scored 15, all off the fast break.
In other words, you were just feeding the ball.
I hated to give it up, but I gave it up. I probably had probably 15 assists during that ball game. And if I'd known there was a scoring record, Bob, you wouldn't have got that ball, man.
Well, in my senior year, we were beginning to get away from the traditional two-handed shot and to go with the one-handed shot, or the jump, more like the jump shot. There was a player from Frankfurt by the name of Vaughn, who went to University of Southern California, and he became an All-American. And he and Archie Chad, who was my coach, they were friends. And Vaughn was back in in the fall of 1939, and talked to Chad and showed him how this could be used. There was a player on the West Coast by the name of Lucetti, and he was red hot, throwing the ball from ever, and really cranking things up. And Chad tried to instruct us on how to do it, but it was never really successful because the other way of playing the game was so ingrained that none of us could adapt well enough to be competitive. So, what's the lowest score you can ever remember in your careers? You haven't said a word.
That's a long time ago. Those things.
Oh, come on. You do better out in marshes when I talk to you.
You're talking about low scores.
Yeah.
I don't know about the total of the game, but the lowest score that we saw, Bob and I saw, was in Kokomo during the 1946 when we were leading Kokomo 27-14 at the half. We got beat 31-29. We had one free throw the third quarter, one free throw the last quarter. Then the next week we scored 21 total points against Newcastle. Then the next week the sectional started, and we started scoring points.
All right, was that due to where you played? In Newcastle, did you play in the YMCA?
Yeah, I played in the but we played Newcastle at home that year. We lost. But now Kokomo, we played at the old Armory, and
No, that wasn't very pleasant
no,
either.
it wasn't. And they told us later that most teams did not score at the basket that we shot at the second half, and we lived up to that. We didn't score.
Well, it was amazing how much the gymnasium meant to you. Some of the older gyms like Connorsville had a floor that wasn't anyways near wide enough, and it certainly wasn't long enough. So you had the center line, and for the 10-second line, it was almost down at the free throw line at the other end. And so you had this long, narrow place to play, and they had the bleachers right on the floor, and no heat in the wintertime, and things are pretty ugly. One of the things that we used to wear was long socks with knee guards, and the reason was to keep our legs warm. I had pretty legs, so I wanted to show them off, but. What kind, you remember any, I have to tell you. Technical of Indianapolis came to Anderson, and they brought with them the first, I'll call them satin uniforms that I ever saw. Because we had the old, I don't know what they were made out of,
Whoa.
but they itched. You could scratch, and they were, I don't think they were ever cleaned the whole time I was in school. At least they smelled like it. But anyways, Tech had a center. He went on to Notre Dame to become an All-American. His name was Townsend. He was a big, tall man, and he was bulky. And here they come out in these beautiful green satin uniforms, the tight pants, not the tight shirts. And this was in the days when you had the jump ball at center. So he crouches for the jump ball, and his rear end was sticking out like you wouldn't believe. And of course they all huddled around him and got a jacket and we took him over to the dressing room. He didn't have any pants to play in. So Staggs was the coach, and Staggs got the worst, most awful looking red pants. They must have had legs on them that long, and then of course they were big enough for him, but he really looked weird in there with a beautiful green shirt with the white letters on it, and these ugly red pants that had never been washed. And he played the game, and we beat him 42-22.
But you're talking about ripping the pants out. Now, when we played, we had, during the war, with not many, we had one set of new uniforms during the 3 years that I played. And we used some of the uniforms I think that Gene and them played in. But,
Well, what's the matter with that?
well, we were playing up in Marion. We were playing in Marion, and I was rebounding. I guess I tipped the ball 4 or 5 times. Finally tipped it in, then I sit on the floor because I had ripped my pants. And so they tried to, Harry Farmer, who was the biggest guy we had, tried to help me up. I tried to break his arm because I didn't want to get. So finally they brought me out a blanket, and I run downstairs and put on a pair of the JV's trunks, green trunks. They were green. Ours were red. Put on and started up, and the buttons didn't button. I had to go back and change them. But I ripped out 5 times that year. Once in Kokomo, and a soldier wrote a poem about it. And then at the state finals in '46, I didn't notice it until the game was over. And there's pictures around that showed me with my jacket tied around my waist because I ripped out the pants. And of course, Mr. Howlett, who kept our stat sheet, and he made a comment in Marion. He says, "I can't understand you, John. You come all the way to Marion to show your..."
Oh dear. What, did you ever have any shoe problems?
No. We got, they furnished shoes for us, as many shoes that we needed.
Now, were you leather shoes or canvas?
Well, we actually had leather during the time I played. The Converse was the main shoe, but for some reason that Mr. Cummings got black leather shoes that we played in.
Price.
I don't know what the price was.
Price, I would guess.
The Converse was very expensive then, $4.95 a pair. Now the same shoe is selling for $70-some.
Well, what about you? Did you have Converse? Did you have Converse shoes, or did you have leather? What?
Oh, no, we never wore leather. At that time, we was wearing Converse at that time. Now they wear everything. Now they got some gorgeous shoes playing with today.
Yeah, they've got some ugly ones too.
Well, that's true, but that's some real nice looking ones too. Especially when they started styling with them.
Well, when I went to Ohio State, we had, they gave us, I played freshman ball. When I started college, you're only allowed 3 years of varsity competition. So I didn't compete until I was a sophomore. And the freshmen played, well, we played the varsity. And, but we only played them 3 times because we beat them all 3 times. And the varsity coach didn't like that very much. And he was trying to teach his boys something, and we were teaching it to him that he wouldn't let us continue. But I did not play. After that. I just played. Got my freshman numerals and went on because track just took too much time.
But you're just talking about the Converse shoe. They're called the Chuck Taylor Converse.
Yes.
Chuck was from Indiana,
Yes.
and he used to come up doing our practice, and him and Mr. Cummings were very good friends. And then when I was out playing with the Globetrotters, he furnished us shoes, and he traveled with us quite a bit. But he was out of Indiana. I wish I'd been his grandson or something. I'd have been
You wouldn't be here tonight, huh? Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
When did the free throw change from the, it used to be 2 hands underhanded? They used to shoot foul shots that way, and then they started one.
I tried.
When I played high school and college, we shot 2-hand, but there were some people that shot the one hand. I think Bob shot 1-hand free throws because he was the only one on our team that shot the 1-hand set shot.
There's a certain way to bend your knees and keep your arms straight or something.
Yeah. Now Erskine was the best free throw shooter I played with. He in practice we used to shoot. Everybody shot underhanded the first 2 years until Ritter came along, and but we'd shoot until you make and then shoot until you miss. And Carl one night shot 79 straight.
Ooh.
And Carl was people don't know, everybody's look at Carl as a great baseball player. Carl had a free ride scholarship to Purdue for basketball, not baseball. But he turned it down to go baseball. So he was a tremendous boy. And one thing I loved about Carl better than I did Bob. See, Carl and I started playing together in grade school at Shadeland. And believe it or not, Carl was the center on the Shadeland team because he was the tallest. And then when we got into junior high, I moved up to center, and we played junior high 1 year together because he was a year ahead of me. Then in high school, we played 2 years together. And the greatest thing about Carl, he loved to pass the ball to me. He was a tremendous basketball player.
Of course, there was a guy waving at him, saying, "Here I am." Here.
It really started. It's the 2-hand generally. Oh, go ahead.
No. You finish what you were saying.
At least what I experienced is that in either late 49 or 50, just very few players were shooting 2-hand free throws. Everybody was shooting 1-hand. Our guys, even from Anderson, with Rousey and Peck and myself, we all were shooting 1-hand. And Abbott, our coach, he wanted us to go to 1-hand. Only place I experienced it in when I got to Kansas was that there was a couple of 3 big guys, or maybe 7, 6, 6'8", 6'9", maybe 7 foot. They that's the only thing that they could do, but we all got away from that, and then the coach started teaching, telling us that we will not shoot but a 1-hand, and so that's what we did. The last one that I remember to do it was a pro basketball from the pro team out of
Are you
San
having a senior
Francisco.
moment?
Golden
Yeah.
State,
So you remember the All-American?
yeah,
He shot the one. Had his
What
brothers, his sons played.
what are you talking about, Rick Barry?
Barry
Oh,
was
yeah.
the last one that I remember that was doing that in the pros.
Wilt shot the one.
Wilt Chamberlain did, yeah, but Wilt Chamberlain, interesting, because he was at KU. What he did, he couldn't shoot him any kind of way. So, you know, from a free throw.
Well,
I'm
I
not saying about the
understand
other
that.
places.
That was my
I'm
problem.
not saying about the other places he can shoot, but he's tough. So he tried to underhand and tried, and he couldn't do it. He tried to one hand, he couldn't do it. And then one interesting thing, that one game, he took the ball, he had the ball at the foul line, and he stepped back, took one step, and went in and slammed it. And he didn't step across the line, so he was still good. Well, they dislivered that too, because once the ball breaks the binarity sign, it's automatically illegal to do. But that was an intervening experience I had with that.
Johnny had a night where, when he was at Anderson College, he had a night where what, Johnny, 49 points?
Yeah,
And
49
last
points and a
two
broken
free
elbow.
throws,
Yeah.
you shot?
Shot underhanded, but I had a broken elbow, that's why.
Yeah. And I was at that game, and I got a picture of him with my little brownie camera dunking the ball.
Come on, don't tell about the brownie, man, that was way back.
Yeah, Dick?
I was thinking somewhere along the line, I heard that Muff Davis at one game shot over 50 points.
Yeah, he did. Muff Davis shot, I think he told me 53 points. Now, this was back in the days when they had the center jump, and they had a center that could control the ball, and he always got the ball and went out and scored. And then they'd walk back to center, we'd do the same thing over again.
They
Yeah.
stopped the clock every time you went to the center jump?
Pardon?
Did they stop the clock every time you
Yes.
went to the center jump? So that-
That's what made took the game so long to get there. Well, I want to tell you how I met all these, or how I found out about all these guys. During World War II, I was in the Pacific, and after the war was over, which was in 1945, and I was in a little town of Morioka, Japan, and we were about 100 miles north of Tokyo, and it was a town about the size of Pendleton, and it was on, I think in October, and one of the guys, I was in the orderly room, one of the guys came in and said, "Hey, Yates," said, "you got to come listen to this radio broadcast. They're talking about Anderson, Indiana, and John Wilson." Said, "Do you know John Wilson?" I said, "No, I never heard of him. What about him?" Well, I go and heard the rest of the game. Now, I'm sure it was a rebroadcast, and because I don't remember what night it was, but Armed Forces Radio had heard about him from Japan in the Armed Forces Radio. So then I come home and tell my wife about it, and then we hear about Gene Wilson. I said, "Well, is Gene in relation to John?" She said, "Oh, yeah, see John Brown." I had him in my class when I taught out at Shadeland, so I knew about him through that. And I found him in the church, and we were both in trouble most of the time we were in church, but weren't we, Matisse?
I'm not that old. I'm only 82.
Any more questions? Yes.
When did they stop doing that? You know, you do the foul shot and then take the ball out of bounds.
Well, that was after I graduated, because when I graduated from high school, I was still doing that.
Yeah, well, they were in 46 too.
Okay.
Yeah, they stopped that the next year.
Next year, okay, because I know we beat Muncie.
I wish you hadn't said that.
We beat Muncie because they took the ball out at the last minute. You know, they got a foul shot, and
Right.
took the ball. We almost had a riot that night too.
Well, what was the weirdest court you ever played on?
The weirdest court, in high school, it would have to be Newcastle, but I played, traveling around the world playing. I played in bull rings and tennis courts and swimming pools. We played a game in a swimming pool.
With water
No, no,
That was a smart remark.
but you know, I actually, in Japan, we played in Japan, and they had, I called them smudge pots, I don't know what they were, but in each corner of the gym, because there was no heat.
Yeah.
And then from there we played in Guam, and we played in a, with the, what is it, pontoon, what do they call those? Yeah, Quonset.
Quonset.
And in the afternoon, we played 2 games, afternoon and night. In the afternoon, the temperature was 115. And after the game, I just actually wrung my uniform out with water. And that night, we played a night game and it really cooled off that night, all the way down to 107.
How about you? What was your weirdest?
Now what?
Weird.
I'd like to bring a little history about, you don't realize that Indiana basketball were wanted everywhere. You could name the schools. Not only were Kansas and KU, there was Nebraska, Colorado, Oklahoma, UCLA, all throughout the west of here, most of them. But naturally, the Big Ten would get a lot their own shit, but they got many. For example, what had happened in the Midwest was that Oklahoma State was the power in that area and in that conference. There's in the Missouri conference. They had a big kid that was 7 foot, and Abbott was a famous basketball coach way back then. He was a fabulous coach. He had this big kid, and he did not allow his team to shoot anything any further than the arc of from the baseline to baseline from free throw lane. And everything went down to him, just about. And he was taller than everybody else in then. And he made twice All-American 2 times. And but Kansas coach Jack Gardner decided he wanted to stop that type of basketball. So he wanted to get some get players that were quick and could run and so forth and so on. So he was the first to really pull people out of Indiana. He did, and and he pulled a guy named Leverett.
Yeah.
He pulled him in, and that guy was clumsy. But he worked with him, and he turned into an All-American. He ended up playing pro, and he was on the Olympics and so forth and so on. But what Jack Gardner did, he pulled out 4 of us over a 3-year period out of Anderson, and that was Dick Peck. Some of you probably remember Peck, and then Rousey, Bob Rousey, and Schuyler, and then myself over those 3 years. And then we started running the type of basketball we played here, a lot of fastballing and pressuring and so forth and so on. And the whole conference then shifted. And then they started pulling, a lot of the other states and the teams in the conference started pulling players out of Indiana. Muncie had a couple of kids. Terre Haute had a couple of kids, and they're just getting them everywhere. And so that changed the whole thing, and the whole conference then changed as you see them are today. Just a little history about the conference did not allow African Americans to play on their teams. And so Jack Gardner with Dobby, who was a good friend of his, Dobby used to coach her.
Dobby Lambert?
Yeah, and Lambert. And so, like I say, he pulled in Peck in 48, then pulled in Rousey in 49, and so they wanted to integrate the conference. Because see, there's certain schools there like Oklahoma and Missouri, they did not allow their team to play in their field house that had an African American on the team. So that way the conference, they didn't have that. So the President Eisenhower's brother was a superintendent or president at Indianapolis, at Kansas City, and they decided they wanted to integrate their whole athletic program, and so they did, and he caught a lot of trouble with that, but he stuck by it, and as Milton Eisenhower was his brother's name, the President Eisenhower, and so the interesting thing happened with me was that Dobby had, I guess, helped them look throughout many of the kids in the state, and so he told them to that offer me a scholarship. So what they had to do, as it's hard to believe, but they started, the coaches of each of the conference had to vote to see whether they was going to allow this. They passed it. Now I'm here, they asked me they recruited me my senior year, but I didn't know whether I was going to go or not. And and then after that, the athletic of the school, the athletic directors of the school would have to do the same thing. And they voted for it. And after that, it had to go to the presidents of the schools, of the conference. They approved it. That took until the first part of August. And Dobby, he kept telling me, hang in there, hang in there. He said, and I already had these other guys there that played with me, 3 other guys. And so, I wanted to go there, even though I had some other offerings outside the state. But so they told me in August that it was passed and I could come. Do I still want to come? And I said yes. So I did take off there in August of that year of 1950.
Did you have 4 years of eligibility, or did?
Yes.
Yes.
I had to go to the Army for a little bit. I had to go over there and frozen chosen.
Oh, did you?
Huh?
Were you over in God's country?
Oh man, that was a heck of a place.
You couldn't play there as a freshman though.
No, precious weren't allowed back in those.
Okay, well, so that was it.
Right,
That was
so,
it.
yeah.
Your three years of
Right,
varsity.
yeah.
But I had the same at Indiana University. I wanted to go to IU, and they would not accept me, the conference. And it was headed by Branch McCracken. He was the coach at IU because he came to one of our banquets after we'd won the state and spoke, and they had the question and answer period afterwards. And someone asked him, if Wilson comes to IU, would he be able to play basketball? He said, I don't think he can make my team. And he didn't have a single player on there that I hadn't played pretty well against all through school. But then the next year, Bill Garrett ended up going to IU
Yeah.
out of Shelbyville.
Yeah.
And that happened because Nate Kaufman, who was a big time, one of the best officials in the country at that time, high school in Indiana, he was also a big insurance agent in Shelbyville.
What was
Big
his,
dollars.
what was his name?
Nate Kaufman. He
Oh,
probably
yeah.
refereed some of your games.
Yeah, I know
And,
Nate Kaufman.
He went down with Bill along with Cleo Blackburn out of Indianapolis, Preston, sports writer out of the Indianapolis Recorder. His mother, Mrs. Preston, taught English at Anderson High School. And I forget one other man. They went down to IU and they talked to McCracken and they told McCracken that Bill Garrett is coming to IU and Bill Garrett will play because he wanted Nate Kaufman's money, $100,000 a year he would give. And so then they went to President Wells and told him the same thing. And that's how the Big Ten got integrated. And Bill did a great job, but McCracken himself was, I consider, a very terrible individual. Because he had, a few years later, he had a player named Wally Choice out of New Jersey. And every time Wally Choice got close to breaking Don Slunt's scoring record, McCracken would take him out of the ball game. Even if he lost the game, he would take him out. He wouldn't let him break the school record. So,
Well, that certainly changed today, hasn't it?
quite a bit.
Well, we took him off our Christmas list.
Like you take like Kentucky,
Yeah.
Kentucky ball cup. When I played in the Indiana-Kentucky All-Star game, I was the first Afro-American to ever play against a white Kentucky high school ball player. But now,
Did you beat him?
we did that. I think y'all didn't, I think that's the first time we beat Kentucky in the All-Star game.
No,
Y'all
watch
beat
that.
them? I didn't know if y'all beat them or not. You know.
We did.
Okay.
31-29.
We beat them pretty good.
Yes.
Hallie Bryant, do I have the name right?
Yeah.
Was that about 52?
Hallie Bryant finished high school in '54, and he went down the next year.
And
And
then how was Branch treating people like him by that?
tell you how he treated Hallie. Oscar came out 2 years later. Branch McCracken would not recruit Oscar Robinson. He says he may turn out to be another Hallie Bryant. And Hallie Bryant was one of the best ball players he ever had.
And we know how good Oscar was.
Yes. And he wouldn't recruit Oscar because of Holly. He didn't like Hallie Bryant. And Hallie Bryant, as I said, was a great ball player.
See, other colleges or universities in the Big Ten was integrated. Quite a number of them were Illinois and so forth and so on. But Indiana was by themselves.
No, they weren't integrated. Indiana was first to integrate. They had other sports integrated.
Yeah, no, I'm
not
talking about basketball.
No, basketball, Indiana was first.
To have one?
Yeah, they were first. But actually, how bad it really was when I was at Anderson College, and Pop Hidden would try to, if anybody was one of the top scorers, and like we played Rio Grande when their player, no, not Bevo, this was before Bevo, Bevo's coach, Newt Oliver, he was number one in the nation, I was number two. So we scheduled them here, and we kicked them real good. And then we scheduled anyone that had someone, so we scheduled Cliff McNeely playing for Texas Wesleyan, not Western that won the tournament, but Wesleyan, a Baptist college. And they sent Cliff McNeely's picture up, and we ran it in the Anderson paper because the game was going to be on, I think, on a Friday and our Thursday, and this was about Wednesday, or Tuesday or Wednesday when they're, so our Anderson College sent my picture down to Texas. The president called Dr. Morrison and said, no way they would ever play against a guy like that. So they wouldn't come. They canceled the game the day before the game. So things were a little rough at that time. But playing high school ball here in Indiana, I never had any problems, with the crowd, with the exception of Tech. Tech of Indianapolis, the only place that I felt I had to in my sophomore year. I was shooting a free throw, and the cheerleaders jumped out on the side of the floor and started leading a yell, "Stop that snowball." And after the game was over, we beat them, and Harry Farmer got in back of me, Mr. Cummings in front to escort me out of the gym. And but elsewhere it was all right. But later on in basketball, coaching, and still goes on today, and I saw it at Newcastle a few weeks ago when Anderson lost to Connersville. And some of the fans, not from Anderson, other fans, says it's terrible the way the officials treat an all-black team. And Anderson only had one white kid on the team, and the officiating was bad. Now, when I coached in Indianapolis, we were playing in the tournament. We were beating Manual by 12 points, and I had ended up with 5 of my players fouled out, and they scored 12 free throws in the last 4 minutes to tie the score up. So I called a timeout, and we had the ball, and the score was tied, and I had the white guard, tremendous ball handler for me. So I told him, I said, "Williams, bring the ball down, give it up, and get it back and hold it." And I had a kid named Kelly. Kelly wore a size 15 shoe. He was 6'3", and he could flat foot dunk. So I said, "Kelly, you get on the red block." And when I hollered "now," I said, "Williams, give the lob." And I hollered "now." Williams lobbed the ball to him. He caught it in there and dunked it. The referee blew the whistle, ran out the foul line, said, "You were fouled here, no basket." So the commissioner had me to come in, said I was complaining about the officiating. And this year, how the officiating is so bad, Anderson this year played up at Harrison, which is a new school out of Lafayette. And there was in the overtime, Anderson, the score was tied. They came down with the ball. The guy had the ball in his hand. The horn goes off to end the game. The red light came on the backboard. He goes up and lays the ball in the basket. The referee counted the basket good. And how they treat the officials in Indiana, they sent a tape of the game down to the commissioner. And he says, no matter what the official calls, it's right. And this is really, it's bad. And again, when Oscar played at Addicts, they lost 1 game in 2 years, and that was at Connersville. And Connersville shot, I think, 30-some free throws to Addicts 2.
Oh, my God.
And you know, things are not as bad now as they were, but they're still bad. I mean, and if you watch closely in ball games that have predominantly black players, they will have far more fouls called than the others. And it takes away from the game of basketball.
When you were at Anderson College, where did you play your games? Was that Byron Hall?
No, well, actually, the first 2 games I think we played at the old roundhouse, they called it then.
Yeah.
And but we had so many people wanted to go, we moved all of our home games down to the Wigwam. And it was the one. No, we played one. They scheduled the mix-up on the schedule this year. Giffen College in Ohio and Tiffin College in Ohio. For some reason, both of them got a contract, and they came to play one night. So we had to play it in the old roundhouse, and one game right after another. Because I remember that game so well. Because in the first game, Coach Hedden took me out. I said, "What happened?" He said, "You need some rest for the second game." I said, "I don't need any rest." He put me right back in. And so I played both games complete. And then after I broke my arm, I was told I was through for the year. But I still got my arm taped up and played the last 4 games. And that was the only time that I ever signaled to the coach to take me out, because I hadn't practiced. And they had a long floor up at St. Joe. But in my 3 years of college ball and my high school, I only game I ever came out of and went back in was at the state finals my sophomore year when I was hurt. And in college, in that ball game, I was in and out. And then the St. Joe game, I came out for about a minute. So in college, I played 3 years, and I was on the bench for less than 2 minutes. And you see guys now playing, and
We didn't get the bench warm.
you see guys now playing, they start tugging on their pants, they want to get out, they're not in shape. Ball players are not in shape today. And I don't know, I just, I watch them, there's great talent, but there's too many things they're doing outside the gymnasium.
Okay. When did you get the moniker Jumping Johnny Wilson?
It was my sophomore year,
Of high school?
high school, yeah, when no one else was dunking the ball in the state but me. And I don't know if it was Corky Lamb or Bob Collins, one of the two that wrote it in the paper, or it could have been Bill Fox. But that's how it started. And the thing that was good about it is that I would warm up, and always, you could dunk that in practice, and the other teams would stand and watch. Psych job, you know.
That's great. Didn't you one time have more than once shadow the backboard?
Once, well, actually, once in college, rather, I went up and I was dunking the ball, and somebody hit me from behind, and I was laying just like that, and I reached back and grabbed the rim, and it broke the backboard from one corner, I just cracked it one corner to the other. And then when I was with the Trotters playing on Oakland, I went up to dunk the ball, and the backboard exploded. And I still got a little scar on my forehead right here, where a piece of glass hung in my head. And the referee, Pat Kennedy, who ended up refereeing pro ball for years, but then after he's got older, he refereed with us, with the Trotters. And he was coming out of the locker room to get ready to start the game. He saw it and he screamed out, "Don't open your eyes." And he came out, he brushed the glass off my face. And then they pulled the piece of glass out, and the blood shot out, so they took me to the hospital, sewed it up, and I came back, and I said, "I'm ready," and the business manager said, "No, you can't go in." So I found out, convinced him, I went in. He said, "Don't go near the basket." So, well, I had that opportunity to slam again. I hit it in, and before I hit the floor, somebody was in my place, you know.
You know, him talking about warming up and having everybody watching. And we, at Ohio State, we had a shot putter. And of course, in college, that's a 15-pound iron ball. So this guy took a croquet ball and he painted it gray. So he gets out there and he's warming up and goes through all. Man, he throws that thing out there about 80 feet. These guys just stand around looking at him. Holy cow! He won. He psyched everybody out. Yes.
You know, earlier you were talking about shooting free throws, two-handed, underhanded, and one-handed. But Johnny had a unique way of shooting free throws when he was with the Globetrotters, didn't you, Johnny?
Yeah, a few times I get it off.
Tell
The drop kick.
The drop kick.
yeah.
And what was good about that, we had the football skit near the end of the ball game, and where they center the ball back and you drop kick from the center of the floor. I know the first time I hadn't, Marcus Haynes, a great dribbler, who was a great basketball player too, and he had been doing it, but then one day we got to the gym early, and I told him, I said, "Mark, I can beat you kicking the ball." And see, I'd been a place kicker in college in football, and so I kicked in about 5 or 6 before the game, and he said, "Hey, that's your job." And what was good about it is that anytime you made it, you were given an extra $100. And So the third time that I tried it in a game was in Marion, Indiana. And my mom was at the game. The first game she saw me play with the Trotters. And I kicked it in. And the next night we go to Cleveland and play. And Lou Groza, the great kicker for the Browns, was there. And so Abe introduced me to Lou. And I said, he's trying to steal your job. So that night I kicked it in again. So then the next night we go to Sandusky, Ohio. The papers write it up big time, you know. Kick it, the ball landed in the foul circle. Didn't get it halfway. But during the time I played the Trout, I think I kicked in something like 70 some different games.
Oh,
I made it, and so I was making more money kicking the ball in than I was in salary. But I still clown around, do it now, every now and then. But one day when I was at Malcolm, I was Flynn Robinson, who played for the Lakers. Flynn and I was in the gym horsing around. He was shooting long shots from the where the midline and the free throw and the sideline meet, and I was kicking from that side. And just then, Eloise Saperstein, Abe Saperstein's daughter, was coming down into the gym because she was running the summer league there. And I was getting ready to kick, and she says, $50 if you make it. She paid me. But I did that a lot at Wood High School. And because those high school kids, you know, I'd get them out at the midline and the sideline, and I'd get on the other side and tell them, I bet you I can kick it in before you can shoot it in. Well, a high school kid can't hardly get that ball up from there. I'd put the show on them a few times.
did you ever get a picture of that on film?
Yes, what's her, Lou Winland, who her son's a golfer and coaches. I was running in school detention at Northside Middle School, and she asked me to go down to the gym, said she wanted to film it. And so I kicked several, and finally one went in. She got it on film, and the ball went back at the camera, and I kicked one from the other foul circle, and it went in. And she had it on film. So I said, Lou, I need a copy of that film.
Yeah.
She can't find it.
Oh, I'm not sure it happened then.
That's it.
Well, one more question, and that's it.
In your high school days, did you ever have practice games with the Anderson Packers?
No. In college, I used to, when the pro teams would come in from the other towns like Sheboygan and Oshkosh, I would scrimmage against them. But not in high school, no. You couldn't, it was against the rules anyway. You couldn't do it.
Wow.
Hey, listen, we're running out of time. One more, it's right here.
Can I ask Ray a question? You mentioned you were frozen chosen in Korea. When were you in, and did you play any basketball while you was in the Army?
We tried, but you played in a place there was no heat and concrete floor. So we did play, but it was you had to wear clothes and stuff so that they wouldn't scun your legs and stuff like that because.
And you had hecklers everywhere.
And the thing about now, I'm going to tell you one about him when he was over there, which is just, I couldn't understand why he would do that. The Globetrotters had a chance to go over there to Korea to play, but they was only allowed one form of entertainment a month. And so the month that we were supposed to go over there to play, they voted on whether they wanted the Trotters or somebody else. And you know, they turned us down to get Marilyn Monroe. I couldn't understand him.
I'd vote for them when I was over there.
Yeah, the desert place, anything is sure, yeah.
Listen, Hunt, what's Hunt got? Got to hear what Hunt's got. Well, make it quick.
Okay, I'll try. Ladies and gentlemen, these young men up there in front, young men, they are, we talk basketball, but they're outstanding athletes. You may have a talk on a track because they're outstanding athletes in track over their lifetime, high school and college. So I know each one of those guys have done well.
Let me say something else about that. You know, several years ago, they picked the greatest athlete in the county, and they named Carl Erskine and myself. but I told the newspaper they were wrong. There's the greatest athlete that ever came out of this county, right there. But Gene was a star in football, star in basketball, star in track, and I even saw him play a lot of good first base in baseball.
Yeah.
So he was a great.
That's
greatest
that's the
athlete.
only state championship team I was ever on, was a baseball team.
He wasn't very good at golf.
Thank you all for coming.